how did you pick Columbus? Like, you actually did research and you actually chose Columbus, Mississippi.
Yeah, so I actually spent months of research on Columbus, Mississippi. And so I was looking for somewhere where a town could potentially double in value over the course of 10 years and try and get it before the curve. So basically, I was looking for a Huntsville before Huntsville became what it is today.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Good for Business podcast. I am Colin Krieger, local realtor and do-gooder, and my guest today is Thomas Taylor III. Thomas, welcome to the show, and go ahead and just start telling everybody what you do for a living.
Oh, well, Colin, thanks for having me. I moved to Columbus, Mississippi about a year and a half ago from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I run a fix and flip operation in the GTR and the Tupelo area.
There you go. So in case y'all didn't know, that means he's rehabbing houses. And I'd like to jump into this right away before I get into your amazing origin story. How did you pick Columbus? Like, you actually did research and you actually chose Columbus, Mississippi.
Yeah, so I actually spent months of research on Columbus, Mississippi. We were looking for a market. So let's use somewhere like Ogden, Utah, for example, somewhere I spent some time nearby. They doubled in value over the course of 10 years. The houses in that town did. And so I was looking for somewhere where a town could potentially double in value over the course of 10 years and try and get it before the curve. So basically, I was looking for a Huntsville before Huntsville became what it is today. And so did a lot of research. Columbus has a lot of really big businesses coming into the GTR area. And what happens when big businesses come in is more businesses come in, small businesses, big businesses. So I came out here for a month. I looked at some different towns, looked at Columbus. We really liked the people here. We really liked the town and moved the family out here, and we haven't looked back since.
Well, good deal. All right. Well, now get into your origin story growing up in Salt Lake City. You grew up in Salt Lake City?
Between Salt Lake City and Oklahoma.
Okay. All right. So that's quite a bit. All right. Well, tell me a story about baby Thomas Taylor III and whoever Thomas Taylor II is.
Okay. Well, I don't think my life is particularly interesting. I was one of 5 siblings in Oklahoma. My journey started really when I was 16. I told my parents if I got a good enough ACT score, they'd let me move out of the house, and we mutually agreed to that. So when I was 16, my score was good enough, and I moved to LA, and then I moved to Kansas City, and I did some cool things, and I moved back to Oklahoma to get ready for my LDS mission, and then I served a 2-year religious mission in Bakersfield, California. I went to Salt Lake City after that to go to school again. I met my wife, and
the rest is history, I guess.
The rest is history. Now I have 3 beautiful kids, and I'm just not as fun as I used to be anymore. So,
what was your first job in real estate?
I worked for a fund out of California called Wedgwood, and they were probably the first large corporate flipping operation in the United States, or the first big one to do it at scale. I helped them at the foreclosure auctions. So half my day I was working at the foreclosure auctions. I was going and bidding on properties, working with people in tough situations after we bought the house. And then the other half of the day was spent managing rehabs, contractors, budgets, all of that good stuff. After that, I got into acquisitions, and it was really good timing because it was right before COVID happened. So this company that was buying exclusively from foreclosure auctions all of a sudden needed a way to buy houses outside the foreclosure auctions. And so me and a few other people who had started this other branch looked really good, probably better than we actually were. And so that's what happened. I was just doing acquisitions for them. It was a great time. I was mostly in Utah, but I helped in Idaho, the Carolinas, Atlanta, did that. And then there was another fund that purchased Homevestors, the We Buy Ugly Houses.
Yeah, the big dog daddy.
Big guys. And when they purchased Homevestors, they said, how can we add value to this operation? And one of the ways was to open a corporate flipping operation, because Homevestors has always been a franchise-based model. And so we connected, and I was hire number 1. It was me and my boss, and 25 markets, 50 employees later, we had a pretty sweet operation. And I guess I just got a little bored. If they paid me a little more money, I probably would have stayed longer.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to do my own thing. So here we are, and January was a good month for us. We got 6 deals under contract, and February's been good too. We've already got one in the books.
What's the name of your company here?
Oh, so it's Brown Oak Properties and then Japanese Maple Properties.
Okay.
I need to talk to you because I have a terrible brand. I'm not good at branding.
I try to get out there and about a lot, but people would have seen your sign. I like to say if you take the left turn going to Vibrant or Audubon Cove, if you're an Air Force Base guy, you're right there behind the Sprint Mart, right? What's the name? What's on the name on the sign?
It's just House Spire, and then it has my name.
Yeah.
We were going to put like a logo there and a brand, but we just couldn't agree on something. And so we will do a brand, but I need to go to your TED Talk first and hear about how great you are marketing.
My new name tag, and of course, my main slogan for years has been, my name is Colin, I sell houses. And so I've had several friends who've taken that and run. Andrew Benton, most notably, who has a billboard that says Benton's Mechanical. We answer the phone and show up on time. Like, talk about, like, when you just keep simplifying something, and you said somebody's pulled up there just because they see the sign saying you buy, essentially, that you buy houses, right?
Yeah, we have someone stop in every other day just to say hi, or it's a contractor or someone who wants to sell a house. So if you ever drive by, come say hi. We love to talk, and
that was a principle when I started in real estate 12 long years ago. So I started on October 1st, and I called. The market was a lot slower then, like 180 days on the market as opposed to 80 or 90 now, which, by the way, for 30 years, 180 days was perfectly normal. Mm-hmm. And what happened is once you got over 100, you might make a price drop, but nobody flinched at 3 months. And people are starting to get used to it now. But I had showed somebody a house the other day, and they were like, well, it's been around 60 days. I'm like, well, golly gee, like that's not really that long. But the expectations from buyers and sellers agents are so different right now that people are just adjusting. And man, so when I started, I called every expired listing. So a listing comes off the market going back 4 years, and I got about 20 of those. And then I started looking on major thoroughfares in the spirit of your sign. And if I saw a name I recognized, I'd call. I'd be like, hey, Thomas. I was like, I noticed you got this vacant lot on near 45 and 82. You ever want to sell it? He's like, what do you think it's worth? I'm like, I don't know, like $300,000. He's like, if I get $1 million. I'm like, can I list it for that? He's like, why? I'm like, I need a sign. So by Christmas of that year, 3 months later, I had 40-something listings and 40 signs and 32 lock boxes. And the illusion of real estate is the most harmful thing to real estate is the illusion of success in real estate. So everybody, it's easy to get into. The barrier to entry is fairly low. It's like a stepping stone. And but for success, like, you don't make any money. So I had all those signs of going to Christmas parties. People are like, man, that's amazing. I hadn't made a penny. Like, I was about to leave. I was going to leave at the end of January. I'm like, if I don't have a closing, I've spent like $8,000 on stuff and I have nothing to show for it. I do think that's one of the illusions of real estate is like, flipping's easy. You know that. You and I talked the other day about, there's a couple flippers in our market that got pinched. Some of them got pinched because of they have rentals and flips, and they're getting pinched by in case you didn't know, boys and girls, most rental properties aren't owned for cash. So there's a lot of people that have them for cash, and most flips aren't owned for cash. But a lot of the rental people are borrowing money at 5 years, and the interest rate resets in 5 years. Well, guess what's happening this year? So there's a lot of guys at 5 years who had 3.99 interest rates on houses, and when they refinance them, they're 7. So on a $100,000 house, your payment's not doubling, but it's close.
Yeah.
And then that forces rents up and another wave of rents going up and just forces it. You're not as smart as you used to be. So like when you work for these big companies, right now you may get money from a private investor or what's called a hard money loan, which is where, you call your friend, let's call him Peter, and Peter's got $1 million or whatever, and he loans you $1 million. He's going to lend it to you at a little higher interest rate than the banks. I want to ask you, I was thinking about it. So in 2018, 19, y'all are doing all these deals. Were y'all just using straight bank money because it was easier and so much cheaper, or were big companies using like private equity and hard money loans?
No, you're completely right, Colin. So when you get to a certain scale, banks are going to treat you a little more seriously. So you look at someone, like just me as an individual, 6 deals a month, a bank's not really going to blink an eye at that, right? It's just not interesting to them. But if someone's saying, hey, I'm buying 100 properties a month, that's interesting. And they can say, hey, I've been doing this for 3, 4, 5, 10 years or whatever. That's an interesting business model because they're there for long term, and it's a good way to recycle your capital. So a lot of these funds, they just have relationships with banks. Yeah. And that's how they're getting
their
money.
Money got cheap. I said everybody looked brilliant, and for that 4 or 5 year run, because first time I bought a house, the interest rate was still in the eights. And I worked for, like at our high school, we had an internship like every semester or whatever. And I went to Gertrude Gardner, which was a big real estate office in New Orleans. I think it's still there. And I mean, they had an all-night pizza party when the interest rate went below 10%. Like it was just inconceivable to be any lower than that. It was just the most exciting time in history. And so now with it a little bit higher, it's a little more clunky for, the amateur investor with a line of credit or something, or even a semi-professional one. There's a lot of semi-professional ones. And going back to you betting on Columbus, there were 2 other investors that bought 40 plus rental houses in town last year. I don't want to give out their name on the air, but like
Sure.
there's and Brandon Dozier's the only one I can speak publicly. He didn't give up 40 last year, but he's got 100 doors. Brandon invested heavy in Columbus and Lowndes County over the last 3 years. He owns the Ranch House. Go eat the Ranch House. A wonderful breakfast on the weekends.
Good breakfast.
$10 plate lunches and stuff like that. Locally owned and operated now, but they're fighting hard over there. He bought the New Hope Y, and then 100 doors of real estate. And he is a bulldog. Like if he sees a good deal, he's getting it done. But he improves the houses, which improves the community, raises everybody's property value. And again, the one person who bought a large portfolio of 40, 50 houses, like they're investing in town. Like we don't have a big operator right now on a rental scale that is just keeping the houses running. Now, 2 or 3 of them have kind of gotten out of the area in the last couple of years, but the people who are buying them are usually people who, much like myself, came here from out of the area and are staring, going, I'm looking at the camera going, can't you see like this opportunity of what's going on? And I'm glad that you saw that. Where are most of your houses? Are they primarily East Columbus? Are they all over the place? Or?
Yeah, the majority of them are in Columbus, and we have some in Starkville, and not really in West Point. It's hard to make those numbers work sometimes because it's a lower purchase price, lower rent. Our model has changed. Over the last year, a lot of the homes we were buying, we were keeping as rentals. Now we're almost exclusively flipping everything. So you're going to see a lot more of our property start hitting the market. And now the goal is that we'll just use those funds and then just buy multifamily at the end of the year. It's a little easier to manage. And,
Are you trying to buy multifamily here or just anywhere?
I would prefer here. I am 100%. All my marbles are in Columbus.
I just wish we just have and not just slightly, almost an abnormally low amount of multifamily here. There's some apartments, and of course, at one point, two people owned most of the apartments in town. Apartment complexes. We've seen some national influx on that. But if you go to a normal city, folks, but a normal city our size will have 6 to 7, 8% multifamily, and we're probably around 2 or 3. Not a lot of fourplexes and duplexes that every VA guy who's interested in Air Force pilot who's interested in investors, like, I'm going to get a duplex and live on the other side. I'm like, well, there's 11 duplexes downtown. There's just not a lot. But we live in a world of abundance and opportunity, so there's stuff out here, And, some people are doing rental management as their business. Some people do. Like my rental properties, I have 13 doors, 12 properties, is really for the tax advantages of it, the write-offs, is to offset my income so I don't have to pay much federal taxes. Less federal taxes I pay personally, the more I can do cool stuff in the city, like charity-wise, fundraising-wise, and keeping 3 teenage daughters happy-wise. I think that's a thing.
Yeah, kids are expensive.
Kids are expensive, but they're lovely, and I love most of my children. If you'd like to borrow, I tell people all the time, if you'd like to borrow one of my teenage daughters for work or to experience the joys of children, they're good kids.
Do they help you at all with your business?
Yes.
Do they do real estate?
Yes. So I've got 3 of them. The youngest one hadn't done a lot. The oldest one was at my office yesterday. She's off. This will date this podcast a little, but Old Miss got hit by an ice storm, so she came back here. So she has cleaned bird poop off of signs, re-rack signs. I did put them. The other 2 came and helped me put signs on there. They've been in the rental properties and painted houses and stuff before. So that helps with the work ethic of me not just leaving. I'm like, come with me and look at this. I don't do too many leaky toilets and that sort of stuff. I've got people for that. And usually what I do is when I get a bad call about something breaking, I immediately turn that on my end into real estate prospecting. So like I'll call, if I have right now, 9 listings or something, I'll literally cold call the people in the neighborhood. I'm like, hey, I got a house down the block. Can you give me some input why it hadn't sold? Or, do you have any friends who might want to buy it? Blah, 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 blah. That way I'm doing something productive to hopefully pay for the $200 toilet call inevitably at 4 o'clock on Friday. So,
Right. There's a guy, I think his name is Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah.
He has this exercise where you look at all the activities you do in a week and you figure out like what are the biggest impact for your business in terms of like return on investment. Like if you do this activity over and over and over, is this the highest use of time? So there was a point in our business where we were swinging hammers and, hanging drywall and things like that. We exclusively don't do that anymore. One, it's better for the community. Right. We're giving more work to people outside of our organization. So we outsource a lot. And two, we can focus on what we're good at.
Yeah. And it really depends. I have this discussion. We had Gilligan's Island, a 3-hour lunch, a couple weeks ago. And that's why you're on the podcast. But there's people stress. Well, there's a lot of people trying to find shortcuts to stuff and getting AI assistance and doing people. But if they're not doing the prospecting during that time, just admit that you're not doing it for work-life balance and you're staring at TikTok on your phone. That's okay. I said famously on a podcast, and I felt this pressure the other day because my daughter was watching me yesterday morning in my office for the first 3 hours. Imagine your kids are watching you at work. And if you really say that mantra when you get to work and go like, my kids are watching, would they be proud? There's very few people who survive the day. And in real estate terms, like they tell people like, no, you shouldn't be cleaning bird poop off of signs. Well, if you've only got 2 listings, you have time to go clean the bird poop off the signs. Unless you really are prospecting 6 hours a day, which, I don't think anyone in our market is doing. Y'all may be doing if you're hiring professionals. And then some people, you just got to let go of some stuff. I'm a professionally trained, award-winning photographer. I had to let go of taking pictures of houses. It's still difficult for me to do. But you're doing listing 60 houses a year, and I'm like, I'm going to have to let Chris go out there and take some pictures for me. So, and it's always hard to let go of things, There's so much stuff that we haven't even realized in the last couple of years that I say AI or tools and apps and stuff are helping us make quicker that we don't quite realize. Like just even on social media for me, now that they kind of have a little bit better scheduling on stuff, that I can sit down at 10 minutes a night and schedule 2 days of I call them my mindless Facebook posts, not reactions, not cheering on my friends, but just like, oh, I got this house or this event's coming, and I can be bloop, 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 and get it over with quick. So how many folks do you have working with you?
Yeah, so we have a team of 4. So we have 2 acquisition managers. They're absolutely fantastic. So lucky we have them. And then a project manager who's managing the contractors, the renovations, and all of those good things.
And y'all have expanded into Tupelo too, right?
That's right. Slow going, but we are in Tupelo now, and we'd like to be in Tuscaloosa. I mean, we kind of are, but we'd like to be full swing by Q2, January 2020 of 2026. So.
Okay, well, so we're almost there.
Yeah. So
baby steps. How many projects do you have going on in Columbus right now?
Oh, geez. I said 6. It's like probably 5 or 6 there. It keeps us busy. Like I said, most of our stuff is single family houses in like the GTR area. We're also not doing, there's some investors who are really good at doing the $100,000, $200,000 renovations or just making a home run with what they do. If we can't sell it in less than 6 months from purchasing it, we probably aren't the right buyer for it. So our margins, we take them a little tighter than most investors are. And we know that because we've offered on properties and other investors have offered on properties. And we usually go ahead on the properties we're interested in, but we're doing volume based and, we're just so good at doing these quick flips well and quickly that we can move past them pretty quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of investors' time is the hardest part. Like I've got one right now where I finished one last year in 100 days, and we're getting on 7 or 8 months on one. Now, we did stop for 2 months, and I have to give this advice to any professional investor or husband out there. I said, do not fully rehabilitate a 2,800 square foot Victorian house within eyeshot of where your wife drinks coffee every morning. Because then she will repeatedly ask you, where is my bathroom? And she will call you a pet name that sounds like a bad word. So we did stop on the other one and do a bathroom addition in my house and stuff. So,
I will say this. Everyone, when you think of making money in real estate, you think, oh, I should just flip a house. I would argue that flipping is one of the worst ways to make money in real estate because it's hard to do it consistently. I think everyone has an uncle or a cousin or a friend where they flipped a house, they made some money, they did 2 more houses, they made money, and then on the 4th one, they just bombed it,
Yep.
and they lost 30 grand or whatever that is, and that's why they don't do it anymore, right? So with these flips, I just think there's better ways to make money in real estate, like what you're doing, keeping some rentals. It's much safer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in town who are buying them and keeping them for rentals. It's Red Rock or Redwood. They're keeping a lot. I think not Rock or which Rockwood. I get confused between the two, but they're doing, and that's what they're doing is keeping rentals, which is great, and they fix them up just enough and service the houses and have a good reputation for keeping them going, and so it helps. I like as a realtor, of course, I want everybody in the world to buy their house and live in it, but there's a lot of people who are coming through town for the Air Force Base and stuff and need rentals, and the Air Force Base, besides having a $500 million economic impact here, is just it supports a large part of the rental market north of town, and even more so now that they've done some reorganization and reconfiguring. So you're going to have probably over the course of the next 2 years, 15 less homeowners at T1, which is a big plane up there, the different planes leaving and stuff, and the training being reorganized. So you're going to get about 15 people out of the market, but there's going to be enough coming, like you said, with the industrial development we have. Not everybody lives here, but if you have a third of the people living here, every $100,000 job creates another $20,000 job. So every junior engineer or management level person, or at some of the factories, just a normal person working, that's another person that has to work at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A to support that. Just because on the aggregate that my family spends all their money at Chick-fil-A and is deeply invested, but some people eat at different places. But it's a huge impact. What's been the biggest challenge? Do you have any big challenges in Columbus with permitting or oversight, insurance, anything like that?
No, the city and the county are both fantastic to work with. Really, really great people there. And they're really committed to the growth and development of Columbus and the county, where you go to certain larger cities and they're just trying to make life difficult. So they're fantastic. The contractors have been really good. The people we've hired and are working with are really good. I would say our biggest bottleneck was funding. I have just because of connections in the industry, I have a lender who's funding our operation, and he's great. He's not local, but there might be a little bit of a stigma to Mississippi as a whole. Anyone who's invested in real estate in Mississippi from out of state, they think of Jackson, where there's a large surplus of grade D neighborhoods and $10,000. I don't want to call them war zones, but it's just rough neighborhoods sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, that's what they're thinking. And it's like, well, there's a lot more to Mississippi outside of that. It's really a great state. And we have a ton of development coming in, similar to, what Alabama's seeing and what Florida and Texas saw a few years ago. So whether people like it or not, we're inevitable.
Well, there's with the theory, I think it's 20,000 something people from the greatest generation retiring every day. The Southeast, not all of the Southeast, but when we're talking Mississippi, Florida, and the Carolinas, in the aggregate is seeing a huge population coming down to retire. And Columbus does have a giant regional hospital and quality medical care. They got VA facilities because of that. They're close enough to the coast and to airports and transport. And again, I'm almost from here, been here 21 years. And little old ladies with white hair and big white houses quite tell me all the time I'm not from here. But you can see things from an outsider's perspective. We're like, okay, maybe the town isn't going to blow up and have a 300-home neighborhood pop into it. But also people from out of town don't consider Starkville and Columbus as separate as we think they are.
Right.
People laugh at my wife and I'll go to Starkville 3 times in one day. Tomorrow I'm probably going to have to go 3 times and back. They're like, you drove all the way over there. I'm like, well, if you come from any other city, even in Tuscaloosa, it takes 20 minutes to just get anywhere. I don't know about can't see the forest from the trees. There's always that 8% of the population on Facebook that complains about every single thing that happens, and that's part of the thing that probably people would be happier with somebody like you who's flipping as opposed to keeping them for rentals, because a lot of people think that it's a barrier to growth when people are just buying up and keeping rentals, or Airbnbs is a hot subject here recently,
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different conversation, right? But there was a point where institutions were buying a massive amount of homes and they haven't sold them. We don't have a lot of data about that. I would say Atlanta is probably the only real good case study we have, where it was like 2 out of every 10 homes during the COVID peak were being purchased by an institution. And from like market size, that's still less than 2% for all of Atlanta. But it's still like, well, what if another money gets low next year and then they buy another 1% and then they buy another 1%? I mean, that's going to bottleneck. And to clarify, we'll never see that here. It's just not. it's not going to happen. I know Trump was talking about doing some things with it. And
I don't know how. I mean, he says a lot. I just don't know how you narrow it down because, like, initially, what they said. I mean, the initial rule or thing that he put out, it said institutional investor. Well, that's anybody with more than 10 houses.
it's anyone.
Yeah, anybody with more than 10 houses, which is, I mean, 25 or 30 investors in Columbus, including myself. And I'm like, well, if they just run this through and don't pass it, like, you're not allowed to have it. And then, if you're talking about it's not technically BlackRock, but it's 7 subsidiaries down, well, they'll just make another LLC with another partner and they buy 8 houses with it or 20 or 30. I think some of them, again, when the money's not cheaper, the higher the interest rate is, the more they're going to find inventive ways to do venture capital, and then it's not quite as fascinating as it was before. The neatest part, and I won't call it corrupt, the only one that they have proof absolutely did it was Zillow. So Zillow, of course, the company Zillow has never made money, but a lot of these big ones don't. And they're on a big antitrust thing now for steering and all kind of problems because they're selling agents ads, basically forcing the agents to use their mortgage company and then not telling the person any of that. And then, but in Atlanta was the one where they happened. So there's a neighborhood of like 430 houses. Well, they bought like 11 houses for normal market price, and the interest rate was low. Everybody was happy. And then on the last 2, they overpaid by like $40,000, so like 15% on the houses. Well, then all their other houses went up in value 40% because they had the 2 good appraisals. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and of course, the 2 people that sold their houses are thrilled. It's a couple years after the peak, and they're like, they killed it, And I'm like, it's weird, but of course they were borrowing the money back against it, And it's sort of weird to see that. They call that the Burr strategy, buy, rehabilitate, and refinance, and just keep doing that every 2 or 3 years. And that works as long as interest rate doesn't keep going up. It was weird to see that at an institutional level. Like we have a friend and we just had a house go under contract. His went up. Well, I have 2 other 2-bedroom, small 1,200 square foot houses near it. I'm like, all right, like the price went up. If I wanted to refinance it, that's how I can. You just, a lot of the people who are doing the rental strategy, and I've seen it here and you've seen it with flips, leverage themselves up to 80% or 85%. And then all of a sudden they can't really do anything. Like they're stuck with the house or the flip. You get that close on a flip house and you're in trouble. And it sounds like a lot of money when people are like, oh, it's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. But if somebody's only doing 3 a year, and then they get that tax bill, and then they've made $70,000 a year, I've said quite often, a lot of the people would be better off if they had just stayed at their day job.
Right.
I'm not the best flipper in the world, which is why the last 3 I've done are within a block of my house. It's an investment in my neighborhood. I'm kind of like you. My margins are a lot tighter, but the value of everything around me goes up. The quality, in theory, goes up at the other houses, and it makes people have a better attitude about it.
Right. I mean, you're improving your neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So
that's good. And I've tried to trick some of my neighbors into buying rentals in my neighborhood, but it's only worked with one of them. So God bless them. So I'm always like, you should buy a rental. This one.
Renting is really a great thing, and it's never been controversial because it would just be someone like you and me who would own a few rentals, and we just pick them up every few years, and that's our retirement. The institutional side of capital, getting into single-family rentals, really didn't start happening until 2008, and it really started picking up during COVID. So it's a completely new space, and I don't think it should be an asset class for like the larger money in the funds where, they're looking for some non-traditional investments. It is just concerning when a corporation can own 6,000 homes and just hold on to it indefinitely.
To me, it seems so labor intensive. I didn't understand why they even want it, but I know if they try to get a house less than 8 years old, so they won't have a major, air conditioners and roofs are what kills the worst rental I have is one. I've told hundreds of people that. I'm like, I would tell you if you're thinking about buying one or converting one, is make sure you buy 2 or 3 more at the same time, because like when that air condition breaks, it's painful.
Right, $5,000 gone.
Yeah, I was filling out some stuff for insurance, and again, I'm happy and blessed to have 12 rentals, but we borrowed money for them all, and I said, but they were in. My rule was to have them if they're not brick and I can't bounce a tennis ball to them from my house. Then I wanted them bad, meaning I wanted a bad roof or bad air conditioning, so that when I did the initial rehab, I'm like, clock's ticking. I got 10 years at least on this roof. I'm good. So right now, if I have 12 houses, 9 of them have roofs less than 4 years old. So I'm like, okay, that's that's taken care of. And my friend Brad Elliott clear cut every tree within spitting distance of the house. I used to be the guy like, oh, what a beautiful tree hanging over. But once you're in real estate, you get mad at trees and you want them all gone away from every house ever because they're destructive animals.
Right.
I don't love them. So.
Yeah, we got lucky in that ice storm. We didn't have more damage than we did. So
we had the May storm hit here a year and a half, probably right when you were getting here,
yeah.
Not this last May. And it was funny because I'm on this little show on WCBI with Keely Shields Tuesday mornings at 8:45, and I'm on the show, and like the weather guy the next week's like, "Hey man, we figured out it was like this circular sort of cyclone little thing." He goes, "Can you mark where?" He goes, "Do you know where it hit?" I'm like, "Give me the screen." And I like put a circle on the screen. He's like, "That is exactly where it hit." And I went like this and put an X on all 4 of my rentals that got hit. And that's what happened. Like the roof got ruined or a tree fell on them or a tree fell on an air conditioner. And I'm like, he's like, "Well, that's good for you." I'm like, "No, because my insurance is going to go up." Like I got 3, nobody wants to hear. What a horrible problem to have. It's like, oh, my guest house had a tree hit on it. But like, we were still out $6,000 and we got 3 new roofs, but all my insurance, my next insurance the next year just went up 15% because I look like a liability claim,
Right. Are Mississippians scared of tornadoes? My wife, she loves this place, but she's scared of 2 things: tornadoes and alligators, and that was almost a deal breaker for us. But we're here, and
there was an alligator not far from your office at Champion's Towing about 6 months ago. I'm gonna tell you, make sure your wife's aware of that. Yeah, I didn't know there were tornadoes here when I moved here. Now, since I left New Orleans, there have been 3 or 4 in the city, which never even ever happened when I lived there. So I don't know if that's Al Gore's fault or whoever's fault it is. But I came here and they had tornadoes. I'm like, is this Oklahoma? Like I had no idea that there were tornadoes, and we've had quite a few like bounce over our house and stuff. So.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I'm on the theory that it's a brick house and it's been there for 130 years, so I'm fine.
Yeah, the tornadoes aren't that big here either, right? They're not like Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, Texas.
It's just a bunch of I don't know.
F1s, F2s, or
yeah, I guess we had a big one that popped over us and hit Tuscaloosa real bad.
Oh.
And they've had the one land was a 3 that landed in Smithville, north of Amory. So it happens. I just wasn't aware it was a thing here, So you don't know.
Never know. That's right. I will say this. One of the things we really love about Columbus and I think the South, but mostly Columbus, it really is the friendly city, is how nice the people are, how involved the churches are in the community. I mean, if someone's house is going to get hit by a tornado, at least there's 6 churches that are going to show up with barbecue and they're going to fix that thing right up.
Well, I was talking to somebody at the TV station today. So by the time this comes out, it'll probably be announced. But like Doug at Pelham at Zachary's and I are real good friends, and we met about 9 years ago and started doing fundraisers there, and I started doing ones of my own. And like this last one, for not just Zachary's, but for the ones I've run, not the ones I've sponsored or participated in, but I've run and the ones he's run, we're in 9 years have raised $1 million in little Columbus, Mississippi for 70 charities. You know what I mean? Like it's not $100,000 at a time. It's 4,000, 8,000, 10,000, like that sort of thing. And it never ceases to amaze me. We had one Sunday for this kid, Max Osborne, and who got unfortunately shot, like a senseless shooting. Like when I say senseless, he was at the boat, getting off a boat ramp, and a guy just came up and shot him. Didn't even rob him or anything, like just shot him. And but the community came. It was insane how many people came out, and it as long as the word gets out, I've never seen a fundraiser here completely fail, and people are generous to a fault here. But that's usually how it always is people in the poorer states give a higher percentage of their income to charity, I do wish we had some billionaires here tossing money around.
Yeah.
We have some very generous millionaires in our area. I really do want to say that too. Like there's some social responsibility going on. We have 3 people who own probably about a third of the buildings downtown, the Imes, Gil, Gwinnett, and some other people who really just charge way less than market rent. It's part of the reason that we have pretty vibrant downtown. Now, the apartments and condos upstairs get good rent, but the downstairs places are pretty affordable. You're talking about $1,200 a month, $1 a square foot to rent a cool building downtown. That's a good thing. So
our downtown is getting really cool. There's a lot of new businesses coming in. I'm very excited for this Italian restaurant coming.
Everybody is, and I'll mention once again because it should be open by the time of this. Kelly Frady and her husband Mark. Kelly's owns Coldwell Banker here in town. She recently got it last year. And she, in the newspaper article, it mentioned, like, interviewed her first before the restaurant owner. So everybody in town thinks she's running it. So I sent her pictures of meatballs, and I'm like, where are my meatballs, Kelly? And anyone who calls me, because people call me, and I'm so hashtag blessed that people call me and be like, what are they digging this ditch? Or why is this hole in the ground? Or what are they building here? Or you need to fix this. I'm like, all right, thank you. Do you want to buy a house? And like, no. But if they call me about that, I give them Kelly's personal cell phone number. And I said, I call her Mama Mia. You can call her Mama Kelly, whatever you want. She'll help you. She may even give you the recipe till she opens. And she is just like, these people keep calling me, Colin. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm giving you the number. She knows that I'm trying to get her in trouble. Slow her down. She does too much real estate already. And yeah, they own the building. It's not their fault. And by the way, the guys who are opening this, my most exciting part of my business, I love it when people go out on their first try. Restaurant's the toughest business. I mean, it's you know, they always say like 90% of LLCs or all businesses fail. Well, that's because, you know, not only do people just start LLCs for no reason on a whim online, but a lot of them are restaurants, and it's just tough. I tell people all the time, like, if you work at a restaurant, you want to go out, you know, and start by cooking with your friends, then maybe do catering. I'm not a big fan of food trucks. I just can't do the math on a food truck. And so far, I've been right. Like, even in big cities, food truck burnout rates an average of like 8 months. Because now the food trucks are $80,000, like, you know. But if I saw somebody get like an $8,000 trailer and work up from there, it's just, I know from firsthand experience how tough restaurants are.
Right. You were in the restaurant.
Yeah, I was in it. When
I
was 22 years old, I owned a restaurant, and I got out of it with the skin of my teeth, and still friends with my partner. But it was just you know, that's when we stopped. That was our thing. We're like, well, we can each make $60,000 a year. We can go back and get a grown-up job and make 80.
Right. We don't eat out that often, but what we do, we only eat at local restaurants. And one, because the food's better.
Yeah.
You know, it absolutely is. But two, it's just, man, talk about like the toughest industry you can get into.
Well, my friend Doug, who owns Zachary's, is probably the most successful restaurant in North Mississippi. I mean, just ton of catering, he's there. He's there.
Right.
You know, during COVID, when Harvey's, when everybody couldn't find help, the Beans, who owned all the Harvey's, Peppers, all that stuff, were there. Like, they weren't like walking around glad handling, they were cooking, you know. And the Hucks are always at Huckabee's, like Mr. John's at United Deli. Like, guess what? Like, it's hard to escape, you know. So when realtors complain about it, like, I gotta answer my phone at night, I'm like, well, golly gee, you know, oh shucks, I gotta put in some work. And that work ethic helped me a lot. I'm sure, you know, your work ethic has paid off for you, and you just got to teach whoever works for you. It's always hard to copy yourself, you know.
That's right. You know, it's interesting. If we're going to go on a side tangent here, I call a lot of realtors. 50% of them answer their phone.
Is part of it. Yeah, I mean, I can't always answer, but I've told you my thing is there's a lot of times I park in my driveway and make like 11 calls, and sometimes the calls are like, hey, I can't get you the answer today. And it may be because like I'm getting home, it's my kid's soccer game, or like last night I had to practice for my role as Edna Turnblad and Hairspray the musical. But you know, I call them because I thought about it last night. I had somebody call me about a $32,000 house while I was walking into my rehearsal. On our first break, I stepped outside and called her, and practiced my meditation and stuff. I said, said she deserves calls, got to be just as grateful, Boa. And she was like, I want to do, well, they do owner financing. And instead of going, which 99%, unfortunately, of everybody will be like, they're not going to freaking do it. Mm-hmm. I was like, why are you asking that? Because if your credit score is over 600, I said, there's 100% loans all day long for houses.
Right.
And then she's talking to a mortgage person today. And it may not be ready today, but she may be ready in 6 months, you know? And if nobody has told her that, she's like, I've talked to like 8 agents and they just keep telling me no. I'm like, she's like, my credit score starts with a 6 on the internet. I'm like, you believe me. You see, it's going to be kind of hard to find a $70,000 house, but they exist.
They do.
What is your average price point when you're done flipping?
So we won't do anything if it's really over $300,000 ARV. We really like the high hundreds to the high 200s.
Yeah.
We have like a really cut and dry buy box. Like if it's got 2 bedrooms, we're going to be a little iffy. If it's on crawl space, we'll still buy it, but we're going to be a little more hesitant. If it's a 100-year-old house, which we have a lot of those, we're going to be
it's more work, Guy will tell you, especially since you got to do right. And 2 bedrooms are great for rentals.
Right.
I can tell anybody who's holding on to an estate property or anything like that that's under 150 and in beat up shape right now, like we list anything that starts with a 1 right now. Mm-hmm. is amazing. And mainly because there are a lot of people paying $700, $1,100 in rent. who could buy a house for 150, 160. It's hard to get into a house low enough to be able to flip it and list it for 150. It's just usually the math. But if you can get that 190, 200, there's a lot of people. Our general structure north of downtown is Air Force Base guys, and the average pilot for years got approved for 280, and then it jumped up to 350, and then it's back down. And it peeling back down has affected mainly like Caledonia 350, 370 houses. Kenny Fry built a big development, but even Kenny's has pivoted, Homes by Fry and his son Kenny, and built some duplexes and stuff along there because they were like, well, the rental market's great. The Air Force people don't, if they don't know they can buy a house and get out of it in 3 years, they're not gonna want to do it.
Man, they should take advantage of those VA loans. Zero down is, that's a great program.
No, and because of it, most of our, I like giving this stat out, like nationwide government-backed loans, USDA, FHA, and VA are like 11% of the market. Mississippi last year, there were 70%. That may be higher in parts of Lowndes County. So, it's not a problem here. People go online and they're like, oh, FHA or VA, and they get scared. It's mainly because the banks aren't used to them. They think they're poor people loans. Here, our best credit scores are the active duty military. Because guess what? You can't fly a cool plane if you don't have a perfect credit score. You can't get into the tower. You can't fly a drone. You can't do any of that without an amazing credit score because you're a security risk because you can be blackmailed for your late car payment or whatever, which sounds bad, but that's how people get caught. They get into gambling or do something else. And because of that, our appraisers are used to it. So I had somebody out-of-town bank ask me, we've got a 35-day close on. I'm like, can y'all handle that? And they're like, well, as you know, VA appraisals take up to 6 weeks. I'm like, order it. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, he'll be here this week. And I'm like, his name's Jay. I know who's coming. And sure enough, it was Jay Jordan or his son that do appraisals. And so that's what I like about here. That's why I encourage people to use local mortgage people for all kind of deals because, I know where to find them. I know Leslie Mackey from Gumtree Mortgage stops at Kroger on her way home to get her queso. And so at 5 o'clock on Friday, I can walk in there and be like, what you doing? So, if I know where to find people or what church they go to, there's a little more plausibility, whereas some national bank something goes wrong, they just don't call you.
Right. It's nice to brush shoulders with the people you do business with and not, be stuck on that line. I will say this too with Columbus and investing. I think it's very much an abundance mindset for the entire community. I hope if there's someone who wants to flip a house or buy a rental, I hope they come just knock on my door and just ask for my 2 cents. You can.
Well, you and I love talking. We've met 2 other times, but our first lunch, like I said, was 3 hours just nerding out on real estate stuff. And again, some realtors don't like flippers, and investors have this challenge where we're trying to build some relationship with builders for the Parkview development down at Burns Bottom. That'll be, really breaking ground late this fall, but doing the construction. And I'm like, I got to tell you, the natural resistance of them on their history with realtors is just rough. And I'm like, just build it into your systems. You don't, I understand that some of that's greed, some of it's mismanagement on money. And that's sort of the argument, the for sale by owner argument in general. When I tell people I call it for sale by owner, and I was like, hey, some people change their own oil, some people do their own taxes. I said, I can just tell you that a 5-year-old Toyota Camry costs different at Carl Hogan than it does on the mini car market or than it does in your front yard. And I was like, there's reasons. There's insurance, there's marketing and that sort of stuff. And I said, so I understand it. But then I'll also be like, but you're comparing yourself, all the houses you're comparing yourself to paid a realtor. So if I was bringing the buyer, I'd want to pay less if I was the buyer because I'm like, you didn't pay a realtor, But, I get it. That's part of it. But there's, I think in our market, especially just Columbus, the agents and sort of investors work pretty well together, and that's why, I'm excited to hear that you might get or are going to get 100 houses up and running here because that's 100 more houses out of, 23,000 people. Maybe I think it's 14,000 addresses. Do you know the date on the actual addresses?
I don't. What's interesting though is when you look at any city, a good rule of thumb is 10% of the inventory is distressed. And so, whether that's Columbus has a lot of vacant houses for some reason.
A lot of fifth generation estate stuff that's kind of hard to track down. And people literally, I've done it I'm doing it with a flip now. I just told somebody I've got a guy who's had a house listed for a year and had 2 deals fall apart. I said, listen, we're both there. You put your head's kind of in the sand. Like you got a low house payment. There's no real pressure. I'm like, you got a 150-year-old house that's falling apart. I was like, spend $5,000 on it. Let's take it off the market. When you come back on, I can be like, we spent $5,000 to $7,000. We fixed the whole home inspection. It's got energy efficiency. And I was like, now it's smart. I'm like, you will, like, barring a world calamity, going to war with all 7 people in Greenland or whatever, you'll sell it. But you got to get rid of the objections. Like an old house has a higher standard. You got to get past the dad. You got to get past the home inspector. You know, if you fix those things on the front end, it's a lot better argument. Also, it makes it harder to flip, you know, money-wise, because the surprises usually have another 0 on them. You know, when somebody's hammering something on the wall and it goes through the entire house, and you're like, oh, no, the termites got to it, so.
Yeah, we have a lot of old houses. Like, I mean, the antebellum homes, that's probably one of the things that makes Columbus so iconic, right? So there's definitely a space where we need to come in and do a better job renovating those houses. And, you know, that's what Columbus is, right?
Yeah. No, it's been great. I mean, it's worked well for me on the ones. Like I said, I've done 3 right there on Military Road. This third one's about to be ready, or it should be ready by the time this airs. And they put the counters on today, so I was very excited. It was funny how a little thing like that, I mean, counters are a big deal in the kitchen. Well, like older houses, I've learned my lesson. Like I used to try to make the whole house charming, and now what I do is kitchens and bathrooms are just going to be new, like they just are. And I mean, I do everything right, like all the electric, all that. But the kitchens and bath are going to be new, and I'll have one unique feature in the kitchen that makes it look old, and one unique feature in the rest of the house that nobody else would have, and that's it. And that way, people go in and like, I've never seen that before. Now, I've over the years acquired a bunch of old wood, so I can usually put a support beam up, a real decorative one, but it's 200-year-old wood. So, or fix a mantelpiece. I have a friend, James Wagner, who restores mantelpieces, you know, which is something we stumbled on. He's an artist. He painted a couple doors for me or refinished them, and then he came in and did a mantelpiece for me. I'm like, you can make a living just doing mantelpieces.
You told me the flip you have on Military Road, the Peach House.
Yes.
You painted you were telling me a story about you painted it.
Yeah, so we had to look. So Shannon Evans is a local podcaster. I'm trying to think of a good word for it, too. Aggressive investigative journalist. But she's also a historian, so she found some old documents on the house, and so did Mona Vance at the Archives Department of the Library. And I saw one reference in a newspaper to the Peach House on that. We'd come across some paint like that, and so we did it. And it's odd because the one next to it, I kind of painted a light pastel green. And I was like, somebody's like, you're making this little Charleston thing going. And unfortunately for me, the next house was like a parsonage, and it had always been white. And I'm like, oh, do I make it a vibrant color of light blue, or do I just stick with my, you know, coming from New Orleans, when I moved up here after Katrina, I was walking around. Maybe about 3 months later, I lived downtown on Fifth Avenue, and I was walking down Fifth Avenue, and I see a dude with a crew outside painting his house purple. And I was like, where you at, baby? Like that New Orleans phrase. He's like, how you know? Like, how'd you know from New Orleans? I'm like, Chris, you're painting your house purple, my friend. And Chris, Hannah, and Dell they've been here with us the whole time. I think they're the only other couple that's been here. But they got a purple house with yellow trim. She writes ghost novels and stuff and does seances and all that. I'm like, of course, these are my people, you know?
Right.
I remember him painting the house purple. I'm like, 10 guesses you're the other guy from New Orleans up here. So, how do people reach you if they want to get in touch with you or do anything to support you or tell them about their horrible, horrible beat up houses?
Yeah, well, I have my office, and I basically live there. Just come on by my office. It's behind the Sprint Mart off of 45 and Holly Hill there. I've got, you know, Facebook, email, all of the above. Thomas Taylor III. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in town with that.
Yeah,
name,
that's what I like about it. Thanks to my parents and my lineage of being Colin Krieger, there's a couple other Colin Kriegers on Facebook. The most notable one is an Albertan Western separatist. He believes the Alberta, the province in Canada, should be separate from the thing of Canada. So, like, he's been on the international news before. He's kind of a small grassroots guy, like a libertarian. But, like, they had a big blockade during COVID where they had in Canada where they had 18-wheelers like blocking the road and stuff. I was like, and it's like Colin Krieger. People, I heard about it because there's not a lot of Colin Kriegers. And so people were messaging me like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, seriously, the Colin Krieger from America. And then there's Colin Krieger, who's a DJ in Canada, who's pretty cool too. So
okay,
I'm friends with 5 Colin Kriegers, and we have group messages that discuss that. But yeah, there's not too many Thomas Taylors the third. But reach out to me or Thomas, and we'll come hook you up and do it. All we want to do, we really need to come up with a investor real estate mastermind or something like that. It'd be kind of hard to say everybody come Thursday at lunch, but we can maybe come up with groups. There's a lot of people trying to get into it. There's a lot of, you can learn so much. You and I both can drop little nuggets of wisdom that'll save you tens of thousands of dollars. And sometimes it's overdoing it. And I see a lot of people underdoing it who aren't getting ready for the home inspection and don't realize, like you said, crawl space houses. Like you may not have to do an inspection on a house, but if you have a crawl space, you need to stick your head under there.
Right.
You just do, because you're going to have a $400 to $900 a pier, the little post that hold up the house problem. And if you don't do them right, you're still going to have a problem. So, and I've got guys who can do them perfectly and do them perfectly cheaper. So, a lot of stuff like that. Anything else you want to share with the community before I let you go?
No, I'm just grateful to be here, and I've just been so blessed in this community. I hope that I can be a resource too. So don't ever hesitate to reach out.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Colin.
Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no-pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.